All right, we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Insert More Coins. I am here with the esteemed, the greatest possible booktuber author to ever exist. The series, The Envoys of Chaos, with Envoys of War, and the newest release, The Pawns of Havoc. The man himself, Dave Lawson.
Sorry. I was just getting some reading in and
Oh,
didn't even realize that I was on a live stream. What's up?
well, what's going on? I just zapped you in here real quick just to see how you were doing.
What's
How's it
up?
going, my friend?
Doing great. It is 2 or 3 days after release. Feeling good about the world. Need to get back to writing, but I have taken a few days off to try to do all this release stuff, and you know, it is what it is. Also, I'm building my booktube channel.
That's right.
I'm gonna call it big. So there's already Bald and Balding. I'm gonna call this Bald Books.
Bald Books. Excellent. Excellent. I don't blame you. Oh, we've got SR in here. What's going on? How are you this evening? Excuse me. I had just got back from church a little bit ago. We had a yard sale yesterday that lasted like 12 hours. And typically in our subdivision where we live, like you're allowed like two a year. Mm-hmm. So we're thinking, okay, you might get, most of the time you're done by like 12. Yesterday didn't end for us till like 3:30. So, and then I had the interview last night. So I'm a little exhausted. I'm not going to lie. So, and then apparently you said you're out of town too, right?
Well, I'm not out of town. Well, I technically kind of am, but I'm a teacher. It's summertime. I do things to try to make a little bit of extra money. So some days I deliver DoorDash for a little bit. So I signed up on this app called Rover where you can pet sit.
I know what that is.
And so I'm doing a Rover job right now with a very sweet little puppy. She went into her bedroom to take a nap while I am on the live stream. Her mother told me that was probably the best thing for her to do, but she's very sweet. Named Zelda, which is a fantastic name for a dog.
Oh, heck yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So doing that, trying to make a little bit extra money this summer because got a lot of expenses coming up.
Yes, you do. And it's going to be a whole change for you very much. That's for sure. But one for the better. I mean, it'll be great.
Yes, definitely.
That's for sure. So do you want to, I know we can talk about Pawns, but do you want to talk about Envoys first? And
sure.
Or however you want
to talk about it a little bit.
About it. Yeah. I've read it, obviously. Dave was my very first interview ever. Fantastic. I loved it.
I think it says inside the book something
it
like that.
Does. It was.
Very first interview ever.
Right. Yep. And it was on my birthday last year as well. That's right. I remember that. I was like, it's a big day. It was my first interview, and I was super nervous. And I remember me and you talking about it, and you were like, man, I'm pretty good at talking. I can do it. And I was like, thank goodness, because I'm scared to death and I don't know what to say.
I remember you were kind of like, I'm going to ask some questions, but beyond that, I really don't know what to do. And I was like, don't worry. I will talk at you quite a bit, and it'll be okay. Yeah.
And it went pretty good. I've gotten a little bit better. We'll say that.
And is this your first second interview?
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah.
So I was Chris's first as well. So now what you need to do, this is my sales pitch. Get one of these and sign, that I was your first double.
That's right. Right. I will have to do that
because
that's what I did. You sent me that art, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to give this away, and I'm going to buy the hardcover and have you sign it for me and send it.
And that's the one you sent to Scott.
Scott, yeah, already over, some other character. There we go. Yeah, it went good. It was awesome.
Well, I got to give you credit as well because I think you've gotten me a few other sales. There's John.
Oh yeah, that's me and John have been like real. I like to. It's weird to say real life friends, but my actual like people that I talk to and associate with a lot.
Well, he ordered the hardcover bundle. I'm just waiting for the more hardcovers to come in because like I ordered 5 of them and those got picked up immediately. So I ordered 5 more, just kind of like I didn't want to buy too many before the book even released because I didn't know how many we're going to sell. And so the next batch will be arriving on like Tuesday and I'll get more stuff shipped out. But so I gotta, give you props for those sales.
Well, he's awesome too. Like we talk a lot about books. It's kind of funny because we've known each other for probably 6, 7, or 8 years now, something like that. And we used to go to church together before I moved up here. But like we still go back to West Tennessee, and he's an eye doctor. So we go back, and instead of moving all of our eye doctor stuff literally anywhere up here where we live in East Tennessee, we drive 5 hours back to visit him because his wife and my wife are good friends, and then my daughter and his daughter are best friends. So
that makes sense. I think my wife often, she doesn't get her hair done very much in Tulsa where we live, but her where her grandmother lives in southwestern Arkansas. We'll go down there once or twice, 3 times a year or something. And that's kind of the place where if she's going to get her hair done, she goes there because that's where she always would get her hair done when she'd go down to visit her grandma. So makes sense.
Oh, yeah. All right. What do you want to start with?
First off, I want to criticize Lamia.
It's a good idea.
Lamia's in the chat. She's mad because, so basically one of the things here, she said good evening in BST, which stands for British Stupid Time. So one thing that you have to know about the British is that their time zones, they don't understand them. And so they just randomly change. So whenever we were first starting the Scribes and we had our first live stream, I had Rob Sanders and Rach Sandpiper on, and I had told them like, yeah, we'll be on at this time and this time GMT, because GMT was what I assumed was, the British time. And they were like, okay. And then an hour beforehand, Rob was like, well, are we starting? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, it's 10 o'clock here right now or whatever. And I was like, but I thought there was a 6-hour difference. And she was like, and they were like, well, yeah, there is, except in the summertime when it's British summertime. And then they move it back and it's only 5 hours. And I'm just like,
what?
So there was like, basically for part of the year, there's a 5-hour difference. And for another part of the year, there is a 6-hour difference between our time.
So it's not like hours.
I'm in Central time.
Yeah.
So for you, it would be like a 4 or 5 hour, but I'm in Central time. So like 6 hours normally, 5 hours for the random time. And so like all the British scribes give me trouble about how I don't understand time and British time is better. But they're obviously wrong because their time just randomly changes.
That is weird. I mean, I know we have the, spring forward, fall back stuff, but it literally everybody does it. It's not just no random time.
And not everyone in the world does it, but everyone in the US does. And I didn't really even think about it. Like they have daylight savings, but it's like 2.5 weeks later. So we spring forward and it's like, all right. And they're like, no, not yet.
Yeah.
So there's just like,
we're not ready. Yeah. So it's the longest anyone's traveled to see or not. You're right. Now that's where our family lives too. But he's the main reason. Well, their family is the main reason we don't go. So, and where'd that go? Yes, it is stupid, but I don't make the rules.
I actually heard that Lami was in charge of the British time.
It wouldn't surprise me. She's pretty powerful over there.
She's a surgeon, and she's also in charge of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the sound of mountain time. Yeah, yes, very much.
My friends and I have a joke that mountain time doesn't exist. But,
All right. We're 10 minutes in. Let's get started.
All right.
All right. Let's talk about Envoys. That'll work.
All right. Well, for those of you who have no idea who I am, like Lamia, you probably don't know what the book is here. This is the Envoys of War, which was my first fantasy novel. I had written some things in the past, and I'd even published a few things years ago that I don't really claim anymore because it's just very different from what I'm writing now. So I unpublished the stuff I had published on Amazon. I had a few short stories published in some random literary journal, but basically I call this my debut, even if it's not the first thing I ever actually published. But it's my debut fantasy novel, and I published it last October, and it's been amazing. Like today, so just a little bit over 7 months after publishing, I got my 100th rating on Goodreads for this book. Amazon's kind of a pain, and they're not as good with the ratings. I'm at like 44 on there because some people don't cross post, but I think some people do, and it just like Amazon's like, no, I don't want to, accept your rating. Like I have some ratings on there that I did for other people's books that are still processing months later. But first book, it is a fun, snarky D&D style fantasy. I like to talk about it as kind of like a mix of Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, The Witcher, and some aspects of like Pirates of the Caribbean in terms of Jack Sparrow and Corden have some similarities, but there aren't pirates. But yes, he is wearing a ship captain's hat, but there are not pirates. So this was a really fun book to write, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I've managed to find a lot of people out there who also had a lot of fun with it. So that's been amazing.
Yes, it's very, very good. Real quick, besides just on that, you were talking about Amazon not like doing the double post. They're the ones that created Goodreads, right?
Yep.
Like, it's their app. Why in the world did they not take it to where you could like post on one and it automatically goes to the other?
I think
not the easiest thing.
It's something along the lines of like Goodreads doesn't like, you don't have to have a verified buy or whatever. And so like the Amazon website was the more official place. Okay. And like Goodreads, I don't know if Goodreads was originally owned by Amazon or not, or if they bought it at some point. But I think for them, it's a little bit more of a lawless Wild West in that anyone can rate. Like you can go on there and you could rate every book 1 star and just write worst book ever, hated it, worst book ever, hated it. And like it wouldn't actually like, whereas on Amazon, they might be like, this feels a little bit spammy. Whereas Goodreads, maybe if you like fill out a help ticket or whatever, they might check things out. Like if someone gives you 1 star and is like, I don't like their politics, I think you can normally like ask for help and be like, hey, like this isn't about my book at all. Like, and they might take those away or something. But I don't know. I haven't had to deal with anything like that yet because I don't talk about politics.
Exactly. Smart. We got a couple more people in here. What's going on, Alex? And let's see. Mark's in here. Howdy, howdy. And, excuse me. Let's see. There we go. Well, I'm going to say, worse still, if you list a book on Goodreads, it screws up listing the ISBN on Amazon, screws up my publication completely. Yeah, Lamia had a bad problem, like where her stuff wouldn't even show up on Amazon, didn't she? Wasn't that going on for a bit?
I think, like I did everything through KDP, and then I did Ingram after release. Because I had read that if you tried to start with Ingram or whatever beforehand, it could mess up KDP. And so like Amazon might be like, that ISBN's already been used. Sorry. But if you did Amazon first, then there was more of a chance that they wouldn't count the ISBN as already being used. And I also read horror stories about people setting their book up for pre-order, like hardcovers and paperbacks for pre-order on Ingram, and Amazon buying a bunch of copies of it, and then just like having them sit in warehouses, and then someone buys a copy like 4 months later, and they're getting that same old copy. Whereas with KDP, if you're like, oh, you know, there was a typo on this page, I can fix that, and it is no longer on that page. Or also, I think you make a lot less money selling through Ingram because they take a bigger chunk. So you have to charge more for your books as well.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, Mark, that was, he was talking about Fable, but excuse me. I don't know if you know this or not, but they are doing a buddy read of the Envoys of War on our Discord that I'm in, that I think Mark created. There's like, I want to think like 6 or 8 people are going to do it. So,
well, I knew because they were talking about it in the chat on Chris's live about how they were going to be doing a buddy read. Yeah. So very exciting. I haven't had one of those yet.
Yep.
I have Fable. I don't use it very much. I think it is kind of like a cool app, but I feel like it's one of those for like indie authors. Not too many people are looking at Fable to like for reviews and ratings, and like Goodreads maybe isn't the most user-friendly, most beautiful site, but it's still the one connected to Amazon that gets like the most traffic. So I'm always going to push reviews to there just because I know it's the one that helps indies out the most. I also have Storygraph, and like Storygraph also is kind of a cool app, but
I've got it and I've used it a little, but
it's a cool app. But
it's like better. It's better than Goodreads, but no one.
But it doesn't have the visibility, which is the thing we need so much with indie authors. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, we got John A. Douglas in here. So sure hope this interview doesn't have any bald authors.
See this? This is hair.
There you go. There you go. Oh, me. I got to catch up with all this. I should PTSD. Yes. So I guess now, since you've kind of got the backstory of Envoys, we can move on to the Pawns of Havoc.
All right.
I will say before you start, and I've said this, I think about everywhere, I feel like you're writing and Envoys is great. I hate when I say that. I feel like it makes me sound like your writing was terrible in the first book, and it's not. It's really good. But this right here is just really, really good. And you did a great job on this book.
Thanks. I think for me, I definitely tried. There were some things in the first book that after I published it, some different people, like Bill Adams especially, gave me sort of some things that he had read and I'd written. I feel like I am a good writer and I have a lot of experience writing. I have a degree in creative writing. But one of the things, like I mostly wrote literary fiction and I also wrote it a while ago. And some of the, like, I had so many dialogue tags and I like and Bill kind of was like, you don't have to have a set or some kind of thing with almost every single piece. Like you can, and I didn't have it with everyone, but there were times where like 2 characters were talking and I didn't need to continually remind the reader who was talking because it was just like they were the only 2, and it's like it was pretty clear who was who based on like if it's Jen and Corden talking, they have very different they have very different ways of speaking, so it was pretty obvious who was who. So like some things like that. I also, description's really hard for me. It's the one part of writing that I struggle with, and I usually write it after. Dialogue comes to me immediately. Dialogue is what I love writing, which you can probably tell from reading my books. It's what I love writing. And so the description comes a little bit after, and I think there were probably some times in Envoys where I tried a little bit too hard to be lyrical in my description. And while I can write that way in general, I like to be a little bit more I like to lean into the wit and the dialogue, and I'm not trying to write a literary fiction type story. There are some fantasy authors who are writing very lyrical books, like Lamia's book is amazingly lyrical, and ZB Steele has some great prose. And I think, I can write good prose, but my focus is not to try to write in this very sort of lyrical prose style. It's more of I want to tell a fun story with good writing that tells a fun story. And dialogue is my main thing that I really enjoy writing. So yeah, this book was a lot of fun to write. It was kind of hard because in Envoys, I had 3 POV characters. And so if I was starting to get to a point where I got to a point where, this part with Jen, I want to take a little break from that and I'll jump over to a Tobias section or jump over to Corden or something like that. And those kind of moments it is easier to write a full-length novel when you can jump from character to character.
Oh, okay.
Because it's hard to stay in, at least for me, to stay in that one character's POV the entire time. So there were times, especially when I was first starting to write Pawns, where I was struggling to, because I was like, well, I'm getting to a point where I want to jump into someone else's POV, but I know I need to stay. This is a novella. I don't need to switch into a bunch of different POVs in this 110-page story or whatever. Yeah. So I stayed with Cork. Cork was a lot of fun to write because in Envoys, he's kind of a big, dumb guy with an axe. And I wanted to give him a little bit more of a interior monologue to show he is maybe not a great talker. He's maybe not the smartest guy to ever live, but he is thoughtful and cares quite a bit about the people he cares about. And so in Envoys, there are some decisions he makes that I know a few readers questioned how quickly he kind of joins up with the other people. And for me, it fit in with his character just because he was someone who was going to kind of do what he thought was right in a situation, except in a situation where there is there's no win. And I also kind of wanted to give a backstory about why does he care so much about saving children in Envoys. Yeah. What kind of backstory moment could lead to him being someone that's something I'm not going to have, I'm not going to be a part of. And so I wanted to give him kind of a backstory about that. So for someone who hasn't read Pawns, it really asks the question of what would you do and how many people would you kill to protect the people you love? And so it is definitely a darker story because while there's still a lot of banter and wit and funny lines, and I still think the characters are funny with each other, there's definitely a lot more moments of this is not a silly, happy story. It is a sort of tragic backstory to explain some of the aspects of how Cork got to where he was in Envoys, where he's this, mercenary working for a foreign army who really doesn't have much connection to where he grew up or anything like that until you learn a little bit later on. So for me, it was fun to write a backstory, write a little bit of a prequel. I also wanted to make sure that it was going to be a standalone. So something that you didn't need to have read Envoys first to understand. So it could be something that someone might read to bring them in. And also it could be something that if they've already read it, they can read it to, enjoy a character that they really already liked. Because Cork's been kind of a fan favorite in Envoys, even though he doesn't show up until, a little bit after midway through the book.
Yeah, he. I liked how you put him in like basically a 3-man group, and like you think Cork is like, I mean, he's doing it for the purpose of family on what he's doing in this book, but then you're like, okay, so he's gonna have to kind of be a bad guy to do this, but then you have one person with him that is definitely a bad guy, is like the worst of the worst, and then you have another character with him that's like, you kind of think, oh, super sweet, but not the brightest in the world. But
so, yeah, did you have a question or?
No, you go ahead. I was just
so one of the things that I really liked there was, Cork is a good person kind of being forced into a bad situation. And then the other two characters, and this is something that you can find out on the back of the book, so I don't really think it's spoilers, but Nessa is a she's an assassin, and what is she? Kills and steals, and those are the things she feels passionately about. To where she's kind of like, if Cork went full bad, maybe he turns out more like her. Arabella is a cobbler's daughter. She is a pretty good archer, but she really has no experience. She's inexperienced. She's kind of naive. I do think she is sweet and cares about other people. And so I know Bill, when he read it, he said that she was the character that for him snuck in as the best character in the story. But I really wanted to Arabella's sort of like if Corden was less confident, more thoughtful, and sweeter, but she has some of the same vibes of she does try to use words more than the other characters. She tries to talk her way in or out of situations a little bit more. She knows she's pretty and she tries to, maybe use that a little bit here and there. But I think there's definitely a big enough difference that she's not just Corden as a woman, because definitely a very different. Corden's kind of a conceited jerk sometimes. And I love that about him, but he can definitely come off that way a little bit. Whereas Arabella has some of the same vibes at times, but is definitely a sweeter, more caring person who's kind of naive and unconfident at the same time. And then Nessa was just a lot of fun to write. But the real thing that I think for me has been the most fun has been just going further into the Win. So for people in the chat who haven't read Envoys or Pawns, the Win are sort of a mysterious group of mages that live on an island a little off the coast of the continent where everyone else lives. And Audrey, who I honestly don't think I told I was going live with you today, so she probably hasn't even shown up, but which is my fault. But
real quick, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Lamia's leaving. She's putting the wildflower. She said congratulations again.
Thanks, Lamia.
So, and then Ryan as well. Congrats. What's up,
thanks, Ryan. Audrey calls them a cult, the Win, which I think, it kind of fits. But basically, they are a group of mages. You really can't tell at different times if they are good, evil, or just doing the things that they think are going to best suit their purposes. So they're enigmatic, and they're kind of a group that they are not an enemy in Envoys. but they definitely take on some enemy status in Pawns to some extent. Cork is like, his mother was Wynn, and he is connected to some extent. And I think that really kind of the whole thing of questioning your birthright and like the people that you are descended from, and then just sort of feeling kind of like a little bit of an outsider wherever you are, because I don't know if he definitely doesn't feel like a accepted person in the country where he lives, but he also doesn't really feel like if he went to the Isle of Wight, I don't think he'd feel super accepted there either. So he's kind of, no matter where he is, he's an outsider. And so like, it's a very difficult situation for him. And I also just wanted to explore some more of like the things they do that are so unethical. But also like, you don't really know, like, are there reasons for this? Because things that they think are good reasons, or are they just jerks?
Yeah. Do you think you will write a backstory of Cork's mom on what all went down with that?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think the big thing is basically from like, she marries a guy from Trunel, which is one of the other countries, and like moves there with him, and they have the family. So like, Cork is 5 whenever he leaves the Isle. I kind of think I have an idea of like partially why they left, is that she didn't really want Cork to grow up in that environment. But it's not so much like, I don't know that there was really like this huge, exciting, action-packed escape type thing, so much as just say like, hey, we're leaving. And then the winner like, okay, but good luck.
Yeah.
Because of I'm not going to give you guys like anyone in the chat who hasn't read the book, that sort of like what happens when you leave. But basically, like, I don't think that they're like, no, you can't leave. They're just like, okay, good luck.
The consequences.
See you soon. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked as well, like Cork kind of playing the what's the word? Kind of like a mediator type between Nessa and Arabella. It's like they're constantly sort of bickering at each other. You know, one of them's wanting to just mass murder everybody. And the other one's like, let's try not to do that, or let's do it like this. He's like, no.
And one of my favorite things about that is that Cork is not a good mediator.
No.
He's just like, shut up. Both of you, be quiet and let me just be quiet and let me have some peace. Like, you can kill each other later if you just please leave me alone. Like, he's a horrible mediator, but he has to sort of try, because he's been put in charge of this mercenary job that they're on.
Yeah. And there's nothing better, really, if you think about, like, in a book, but like what you wrote on the person that has to do this quest to save a family member, basically, but is forced to have to deal with other people on it, and he can't do it himself. You know, it's like, I'm good enough. Leave me alone. I can handle it. It's like, no. You're going to go take these people with you and do it.
Right. And partially one of the reasons that he's stuck with these people is because it's a little bit of an off the books type thing where his boss isn't going to be like, all right, take the entire mercenary company out there and do it. Because then, you know, it's kind of like, oh, look, 50 people all rode out and then came back 2 days later and this stuff happened. Like, I wonder who did that thing. So, like, you know, it's a little bit more of like only a few people know, and it's very much kind of a hush-hush thing, and you're stuck with these people who are not your normal coworkers. And
I did like how you put a little like the political like scheming stuff in this one as well, because Cork thinks there's only like 3, maybe 4 people that know, but really more people know. Like, you know, stuff like that. Like, I thought that.
Well, they all know. Like,
they're
And so basically, this kind of fits in with some of the stuff that I've been writing for book 2, with like some of these characters in Pawns coming back in some way, shape, or form in the actual series in smaller roles kind of in the background. It's helped me to kind of build some of the background. I wrote a short story as well, set on the Isle of Wind, that's going to be in the Secret Scribes anthology. And the main character is a Wynn cook. And it's kind of a cozy-ish short story, but once again, kind of explores the like attitudes and the ethics of the Wynn. But that writing that story kind of helped me build a little bit of the background of the sickness that pops up in Pawns, which I'd started writing, and like I'd already said that she was sick, but in Envoys, but I hadn't really like described how the sickness went. And then after writing that short story, then I kind of had a better idea, so I went back and added that into Pawns. So it's kind of like some of these, they've been really good exercises in like building some aspects of the world that I maybe didn't have a clear picture on writing the first book, because like I didn't spend years like world building every aspect of that world. I wrote a book and was like, I need something to fit in here. Let's make this happen. And then I'll go back and write that in. I need to figure that like, and so for me, I am still kind of figuring out new aspects of the world, which I think makes the further books, I think they're going to be fun because of that, because it's not just like everything has been set in stone in the first 300 pages of book 1. And that is the world, and that is how everything works there. And now you just show up, because sometimes, let's be honest, epic fantasy can be really hard to get into, because that first 200, 300 pages is straight world building. I've read a few books where, like, if they weren't audiobooks, I probably would have put them down, because like there was so much world building at the beginning. And for me, I'm all about characters. I really don't care. Like, the world stuff is cool, but I need to care about the characters first before I care about the world. And so for me, the books that I like are usually the ones that focus in on characters, and then you learn about the world through characters, and not like, here is a huge amount of world building to learn, and then from there you go into the characters. So like Way of Kings, oh my gosh,
that's the first thing I thought of.
I DNF'd it after like an hour and a half on audio. It was just like, and I'd like to try it again, because I know it's like talked about as just a masterpiece, but for me,
500 pages.
I don't care about any of these characters, and I'm just like, it's just learning about the world, and I need to care about the characters.
I've
like my books are always going to be very character focused. There's a plot and there's action and it's fast paced, but it's always about the characters. And I think those are the books I like to read as well. Have you ever read the Grey Bastards or the Lotland series by Jonathan French?
I have not. I've been seeing that pop up a lot here lately.
So, I mean, it won Spiffbo. And like one of the earlier versions, and it was traditionally published afterwards. So it's like it's in the Spiffbo Tournament of Champions or whatever.
That's another place I've seen it.
But I read the whole series this year, and it's one where like there is world building, but it's all through the characters and like their views on it. And I really liked it, because it's kind of like you're getting world building, but it's through characters and not just like huge moments of here is the world, which I tune out.
It was like for me, and I've said this a bunch too, like the Way of Kings, it took me, and I'm not exaggerating, 500 pages before any of that stuff finally clicked for me, which is on audio, because it's probably a 40+ hour audio book.
Yep.
So you're looking at 20 hours of audio time, to get to where you start to understand what's going on. But now book 2, or the End of Way of Kings is great, book 2 is great, book 3 is great, and then it falls off a cliff. But if you can read the first 3 books,
I know some people really love book 4, but I don't really know much about it.
No.
And I know book 5 has been criticized a lot.
Yeah, it's not good.
How do I go about building characters and their arcs? Well, so I start off with like, this is the character, and I kind of get an idea of like who they are and what they're like. And I sort of have an idea of, I want, like, they're starting at this point, and I would like them to get to this point by later on. And then maybe have a few little moments of like, this is what I feel like is going to happen that might help spark a little bit of change. But a lot of it really does come down to, as I write the book, I'm not a total pantser who just like makes everything up on the spot, but I'm also not a total planner who has everything planned. I try to have an outline and have an idea of what's going to happen, but I'm definitely very willing to go with what comes to mind or what the characters decide to do, to where there definitely is some moments in the revision process where I'm going back and adding in some bits to like get to where I want the character arc to be. But in general, I always want every character to grow and change by the end of the story, especially if they're one of the main characters. Some of the side characters they're not getting enough like page time to really have huge changes. But like in Envoys, I feel like Corden, Jen, and Tobias all have a very like a character arc that you can be like, here is where they started, here is a moment that changed them, and here is where they are at the end. In Pawns, I think you can say that definitely about Cork and Arabella. Nessa, I don't know if she has much of a character arc, but that kind of is on purpose because that's who she has a little bit of character arc whenever you learn a little bit of her backstory and whatever, but she's definitely like, not every character has to have a set character arc that is like, here's their growth and here's who they are at the end that they weren't at the beginning, because some people don't change. But if like your main protagonist doesn't change and they're just like sitting there and watching what's going on around them, or they are just kind of like at the end of the book, they're still the same person they were at the beginning of the book and they haven't really, then it just kind of is like, why are they the main character? Because you do want some kind of building on who they, because if they're important enough to be your main character, you need something to get your readers to be like, this is someone I actually want to follow. And there are a lot of books that, and a lot of them are not very good, where you have the main characters kind of just like a blank slate who goes around and all the other characters interact with them, but you really, the main character stays very much the same. Some of the lit RPGs and things like that are very much like that, because the main character is kind of like a self-insert from our time who's just like in this fantasy world. And so a lot of times they really don't do much beyond just like level up. And lit RPG is not really my thing. Dungeon Crawler Carl's amazing though, but I'd say that's not really.
I think
not
I
like
agree with that.
Ones.
Yeah,
I've tried to read some other ones and they don't quite hit the same way, but I think partially it's because a lot of times it's like person wakes up and they are in video game. Whereas Dungeon Crawler Carl is like, it's definitely not like they are living a real life with the whole like, the aliens coming in, killing most of the people, and putting the rest of them in the dungeon like that to try to get from floor to floor. Like, I think that was a really cool world building choice to kind of set it all up. And a lot of the lit RPGs, I've read a few other ones that are just kind of like, person wakes up, or like person gets hit and they wake up and they're in world, and now a person has been in a video game for 10 years, and I don't know, I can't quite get into those.
It I like, on the few others that I have read or audiobooked, there's something that they just lack that Dungeon Crawler Carl has, especially in the beginning, like you're talking about. It's like, this seems like a normal guy who has a normal job, who has to deal with, a prize-winning cat, and his girlfriend's leaving him for another guy, and that's okay. That's a somewhat believable story. And then the shenanigans happen, and all the craziness. But there's still like a human element to it, on his feelings and the way things are going. And you get donuts.
And the character work with like Princess Donut. And Mongo, and you get to Mongo and some of those others, like those are the moments. Like Carl changes to some extent and grows, but partially the growth is because of like the found family that I love found family. I'm always going to have that in my books, where like there's a group of people who maybe don't like each other very much at the beginning, but grow to be together. The thing is, I love buddy comedies. Like the buddy cop comedies from the like 70s and 80s, the old comedies from the 30s and 40s that very much focused on like get guy and girl together and they can't stand each other and they bicker a bunch, but by the end they love each other. Like I'm not a huge like enemies to lovers with like the fantasy, the like the romantic enemies to lovers. That's like, he wants to kill her. He is a prince who wants to kill her. She is like, basically, I think those can be done really well. And I've read a few that were fantastic. R.A. Sandpiper's series is great, but it's more of like a fantasy series with a little bit of romance. But the enemies to lovers sometimes is not really my thing, but I like the sort of bickering rivals to lovers thing, where they think the other one's annoying. And they bicker a lot, but then they're like, you're not so bad. And
that's one of the things I like about not enemies to lovers, but like the found family, like Spricket the Bard. Is
such a good book.
A great, because these two guys basically try to kill him at the very beginning of the book, and then all the stuff that happens, with everything, and it's, at the end you're like, oh man, I hate that they're doing that, going separate ways or whatever.
And that's kind of an example, like that's sort of a buddy film, like a buddy story. In that a lot of times, like those great buddy movies, you'd have like guy who has seen everything, guy who doesn't know anything, and like you put it like, there's a fantastic one with Robert De Niro called Midnight Run. Have you ever seen that one?
No, I was thinking like a Lethal Weapon.
That's a good one, and I feel like that one's popular and like it's not bad. But like Midnight Run, he's I can't remember if he's in the mafia or if he's a cop, and then the other guy's like an accountant informing against the mafia. So I think maybe De Niro's the cop, but like De Niro thinks this other guy is the most annoying idiot in the history of the world, and the other guy's like doesn't know what he's doing, but they like are stuck on this thing together, and by the end they're sort of friends, but they still like just find the other one really frustrating. And like I love that. Whenever you put like guy who's seen it all before with newbie who doesn't know what's going on, you're gonna have fun. And I think in Pawns you get that a little bit with Cork and Arabella, even if Cork's not that much older or anything like that, but like he's a little bit of a veteran by this point. And she's definitely very much a newbie who's very naive, and he's just like, are you kidding me? Why are you here?
Got E.H. Bradley, what's going on with it? And then, as I was asking, you're better at Pawns. mean, did you change in the final version?
So SR was a beta reader. And I would say from when you read it to publication, not an incredible amount. Just a second. I will be right back.
All right. If you come in late, he is Dave's dog sitting today. So he is at someone else's house. Oh. But yeah, I had read, I think I got done with Pawns probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. He had sent me an arc, and it is so good. I was so impressed. Like his writing has gotten better. Envoys is great. It's just better. Oh, he's back. You are still on mute. Mute.
The neighbor
There you are.
was talking, knocked on the door to tell me that, like, because she wanted to tell something to the people that I'm dog sitting for, but I told them they'll be back here in a little while.
It's like, who are you? It's going.
So yeah, I was talking about the beta reading. I would say, so the first version I sent out to a few people, that kind of like the alpha reader, I changed a lot. I completely rewrote the second half of the story. Because whenever I was writing it, that part there in the middle, I started to veer off into kind of what happens in Envoys, where there's like, here's the mission, and then veering off into the real story, which is sort of a side mission that's not what is the original setup. But in Envoys, I kind of set it up as like the mission is not real from the beginning. So like you're not expecting maybe for them to actually go and do this entire mission, because from the beginning they know it's not really real. Whereas here I started to veer off into like them trying to help the people in the town and stuff, and going against these like other bad guys in the town. And I just kind of was like, this is kind of going off the rails of like what the story really is. And this is just sort of like, I don't need to put in, maybe if it were a full-length novel, that's the kind of thing you put in as a subplot. Yeah. But here, with a novella, I didn't need another, like, the full subplot to where it's still in there, but it's kind of, and I changed it from like being something that they go do to something that Arabella wants to do, because she's kind of like, save everyone. But for the others, that's the kind of thing that like, they're, no, we don't have time. We have stuff to do. We have a job, and we can't just stop and save everyone we want to. So I also had promised Bill Adams that I wasn't going to have the characters constantly have plans that fail, because the funny thing is that I didn't realize how many times I used the word plan in Envoys until after it's published. And it's like, they do talk about plans a lot, but I think it does make sense because like Corden is constantly coming up with plans, and everyone else is like, oh God, another plan. And then Tobias is like, I can make plans too. And then they're like, what's the plan, Corden? So here, there's less plans, because Cork's not really much of a planner. He's more of a take your axe and swing type kind of guy. Yeah. So.
Do you have as far as this novella, do you have a favorite character?
In like overall in both books, or in this book here?
Let's just do this book.
All right.
I know it's smaller, but
in this book, I'm gonna go a little bit rogue here and say that I think Arabella is my favorite character. Really? I love Cork.
I actually like Nessa.
And some people, I've heard that a lot. Like people really like Nessa.
Well, she's just so straightforward, and it's so like I don't care what it is. I don't care if you look at me the wrong way or if you take a drink out of someone else, whatever. I just want to kill you. Like that's all that matters to me is you dying. Like I think that's so funny.
But like, I think I like all three of them.
Yeah.
Definitely. So like in Envoys, I didn't like Tobias as much as Gordon and Jen, which was heresy to a few people like Audrey and a few others. So like Tobias was their guy because they like a broody, the broody guy or whatever. But like for me, I didn't like him as much. But he served a purpose and I liked his character and like writing it. But if I'm talking about which character was my favorite, he wasn't in that running because I had other people I liked more. But here, I think I like all three of them. Maybe slightly Nessa, just because I love the whole thing with her and Cork and like the nickname and everything like that. The funny thing about that is like my wife read it and her response was, "Is she stupid? Does she just keep forgetting his name?" I was like, Caitlin. So Kate, my wife reads a lot of she reads a lot of romance, and the reason she reads them is not because like she only wants to read romances, but for her it's just kind of like a veg out where she wants to read something where she knows what is going to happen.
Okay.
So it's like romances have a very set structure that they follow, and you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. It's going to be the same. And so for her, I think she's not really a character focused reader. She likes movies with a good plot. With stories, she likes to read something like a romance that is very, like there is a plot that is going to happen, but you don't have to think very hard about it. So for her, reading my book, she's kind of like, there's too many twists and turns for her.
Yeah. That I can definitely get that. But to me, that's what makes it exciting too. Is you never know, like someone may get whacked, but you would never expect, or just I guess that's like a cool thing about like fantasy and stuff like that in general. Because if you want to, you can end like a beloved character. Literally like that, if you want.
Like for example, Lies of Locke Lamora. There are some deaths in there that happen out of nowhere, and you're just like,
"Oh yeah,
oh my god!"
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was flabbergasted when that happened. And like, I'm almost done with The Devils. I've been listening to that audiobook, and I love it. It's fantastic, but also it's funny, and I think that's where I tend to go. But like, I like Abercrombie. I think he's a fantastic writer and a really good character writer, and he has good wit. I've read the first two books of The First Law, and I'm going to read the third one here pretty soon. But sometimes the world is a little bit grim for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say
do you like bounce back and forth, like with like a darker world is it, and then go to something totally opposite when you read?
My thing is that like I am not a grimdark reader. I want there to be hope and like characters who have my favorite type of ending is a bittersweet. I kind of the endings where everyone is miserable and everything's horrible, or like all the characters are reprehensible type of thing. I struggle with those sometimes. Or books like where almost everyone dies at the end, or there's a situation where like the main character is a legitimately horrible person. I struggle with those because I like to root for the characters. And like with First Law, I can root for Logan and I like Glocta. And like I can kind of root for them and like, yes, are they perfect people? No. Do they do bad things? Yes, but they have a conscience.
Yeah.
And like some of the other characters, I don't mind either. Like, so I feel like Abercrombie's grim and it's dark, but I don't know if it's as grim dark as some of the like indie grim darks that are just like, here is this book that is going to be depressing for the next 600 pages, And like, that's just not me. Like, I know I'm not knocking those books because I know they serve a purpose and there are a lot of people who absolutely love them. I think the indie reviewer community and like BookTube, and they love a super dark, grim story a lot. And that's just not really me. Like, this story is pretty dark. This is about as dark as I'm going to get. Pawns of Havoc. And it's still got a lot of humor and banter and light moments mixed in with the darkness and I would never classify anything like it's not grimdark. I feel like it is, it's dark, but it's still got the heart and the humor that my stuff is going to have. And I just, I'll never be a grimdark reader very much. Like, now the Gray Bastards, that series, it gets called grimdark a lot, but I feel like it's dark fantasy. Sure, like the world is dark, but like all three of the main characters, because they each get a book where they're the POV, they're super likable. Maybe they sometimes do make bad choices or whatever, but they're all really likable, and I loved all three of them. And for me, if you have got a main character that you root for that like actually cares, which all of them do, they care about others and they care about their friends and family and everything. I feel like that, I don't know, the world was grim and it was dark, but I felt like the stories had some like, they had happy-ish endings to some extent, and like, or bittersweet type endings. And some of the grimdark, I feel like that kind of goes against at least what I know the definition to be.
Yeah. I've read The Blade itself. It's the only one I'm waiting to start to read. What is it, before they were hanged. And going into Abercrombie, everyone talks it's grimdark. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like super brutal, like terrible language, lots of like sexual content and stuff. And I audiobooked it, which Stephen Pacey is incredible.
Yeah, that's what I listened to.
And it was nothing like that. I got through it and I'm like, okay. I mean, it had some parts, but I was like, this is,
I would say book 2
is
a little bit more brutal.
Okay.
But like and I haven't listened to book 3 yet, but like I was talking with some of the other guys at Willow Wraith Press about how like the George R.R. Martin and Abercrombie grimdark is maybe not quite what like grimdark being published in 2024 and 2025 is, because like that's not really that grim or dark anymore, because
you think people are just trying to push the envelope now?
So they're pushing it more to be darker and grimmer, and like there are some, especially I've heard of some different indie books that like that is the thing. There's like, it is grim the entire time. It is dark, and like there's no good people, and everything is misery. And like it sounds like they're all really good books that people like, but it's not going to be something that I am going to choose to read.
SR, congratulations. It's been fun. See ya. I was, like I said, I was expecting something way darker. I had read, excuse me, have you read any of Thomas Howard Riley stuff?
I have some of his stuff.
Okay.
I've read part of the short story. I won a copy in a giveaway, and then I have his is it We Something Immortals?
Yeah, I have The Light of Kazabon.
I've heard that one is like dark.
Okay, well, the first chapter is like crazy dark to me. Like it nearly made me sick at my stomach. And I knew after I read it, I was like, oh, if this continues like this, I can't read it. Like it just physically I can't do it. And it really slows down from there. Now, don't get me wrong, it's dark, but that like first chapter is just brutal stuff.
I know there's a few different books I've seen talked about a lot that are like the darkest dark. There's one called like 11th Cycle or something like that came out a while back.
I've heard about it.
I've heard is like the entire, like, it is intended to be like, how dark can a book be type thing.
Yeah.
And I know some people love it. Just for me, it's not my type of thing because I need hope and humor and that kind of stuff in my books. I've read some really, like, have you read anything by Andy Peliquin?
No, but did you see where he like gave his first 8 books? Yeah, I got those on Kindle. That's
like that series is super dark.
Okay.
And it's like very, like, the world is incredibly grim and it's super dark, but there's definitely like the main character, you learn a lot about him to where I'd say he is not as bad a person as you might think in the first like 20% of the book. There's a lot of emotional damage and things like that. But I think I'd classify it as just like a dark fantasy and not a grimdark. And I liked that one. I listened to the audio, the first one, and I'm gonna continue on with that series. But like, I can do dark, but I need there to be like some hope and like some characters that you can root for. And I think the Hunter in that, as the story goes on, you're definitely rooting for him and you're on his side, and he's not just like a demon assassin, which at the beginning he definitely is like, oh, this is a book about a demon assassin and just like so many people are dying. But I think he does a really good job as the story goes on. Of like,
all of those books are like pretty dang big. Okay,
that's like I've read the first one. I'm gonna continue, but like, it's gonna be a while because there's like the first book was like a 26-hour audio, and
holy cow, are you serious?
And they just get longer from there, I think.
I was gonna say, you're talking about him. So it's probably been 4 months or so back. He does some special editions with I think is it Merrick I think Merrick Books or something like that. Anyways, they were doing a giveaway, and I won. What is this? Queen of Thieves.
I've heard that one like is very dark in like the first few chapters, like sexual assault type.
This is like their super like special edition of it or whatever. Well, I wrote them when I won, and I was like, hey, it's like, I've never read this, and I was like, can I possibly purchase, because they were doing it, I think, for book 3 or something like that, or maybe it's book 2, I don't know. And I was like, can I like purchase book 1, and they were like, no, we'll just send you book 1 instead of book 2, that way you can start. Right. So, cool, okay. Book 2 comes in and not book 1. So I don't have book 1. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of crazy.
I know he's doing like a sale thing right now where like you from like direct from him, you can get like the entire series, paperbacks, ebooks, and audiobooks or something, like for 60% off, where like,
oh shoot,
you want them all, you can get them all for like, it might be like $100, but it's for like all of those copies of like 8 different things or whatever. So like, jeez. He's got a deal going on for that as well. I haven't read that series. I've heard the first, there's some super, like that one I think has like a content warning on it.
Okay.
Because of like a rape or sexual assault type scene. But have you ever read the Sebastian de Castell, the Greatcoats?
No, but I won't to because I've heard it's awesome.
And that's another one. Like, it's really good, but he also throws in like scenes like that sometimes, just like out of nowhere. And he's like, here's 6 pages of this, and it's like, why? You could just like not do that part. And like,
is that the one that's got he's the one that wrote is it the Magnificent Seven or something?
He wrote it's the Malevolent. I haven't read those, but I've read 3 of the Greatcoat books. My favorite one of his is actually called Play of Shadows, which is one of the new ones. And for me, it hit all the right notes because the main character is kind of a coward who gets a job at a playhouse as an actor to try to avoid getting killed. And I mean, I've taught and directed plays for a while. I love a book that has a theater troupe in it and everything, but like that one for me hit all the things. And like the Great Coats books are good, but I feel like they're solid books, but they don't quite. That one I feel like, it's a newer one, and maybe he hit like all of the right notes for me there. I think it's better than the Great Coats. But it's in the same world, but you don't really have to. Like I'd only read the first book of the Great Coats whenever I read that, and like it wasn't like I didn't understand anything that was going on. Like it's standalone.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of like, well, the Lotlands, the Grey Bastards, Jonathan French books, like there is a lot of that kind of really dark stuff, like sexual assault, rape, etc. in the background. Is like the characters are half orcs, and the orcs basically come in to the human areas, attack and loot, rape, all that kind of stuff. And then the half orcs are like the children of those situations that are kind of cast aside into this kind of Wild West type land where they ride hogs, and like it's been called like Sons of Anarchy in fantasy. But like it's very like there's a lot of that dark stuff in the background, is like that's what how the world has been created, but it's not like constantly on the page. Now the characters are incredibly crass and like so much language and like sexual jokes and everything like constantly. Yeah. But they're also these like hog riding half orcs who live on the saddle and die on the hog. So it's like when you get a group of people like that together, what are like it fits in with their characters and like how they would interact in a situation like that. So like, that book's not going to be for some people because they're going to be like, oh my God, this is just too crass. And like, there's so many, but I thought it really worked because of like the situation there to where like, I'm never going to say like, don't ever do anything. Like don't include this kind of content in a book. There are some things that are probably going to make me stop reading it. If they have a bunch of like dogs dying, I'm probably going to stop reading it. If there's a bunch of rape and sexual assault, I'm probably going to stop reading it. Those are the kind of things like I'm not really, that's not the kind of stuff I'm looking to read. But like, if that's what someone wants to put in their book, like they can do that. I probably won't read that book, but that's why
I've seen several people, especially on like BookTube and stuff, where they've put like reviews out. I know like Tori Tekken's big on it too, to where like she'll say, like, hey, the book what I got to so far was great, but it got to like sexual assault stuff and rape. She's like, I'm done. I don't read that. I'm not gonna read that. So she's like, so it might be incredible after it too, but like that's just what I can't read.
I am fine with it being something that's happened in the background or like that is referred to as having happened, but I don't want to read like an explicit like chapter of it happening.
Yeah.
Like if it's something that is like it's referred to, it's not my favorite thing, but I can, get through with like, yes, it happened, but it's not like the focus of this chapter. But like, yeah, whenever it's just like on the page and they're describing it, that's
especially when you're talking like multiple pages and stuff. It's like if you're gonna put it on the page, can it be like one and you're done with it? And like I can skip it, not 6, 7, 8, 10 pages of it. I don't need that. Which I realize some people are like they like doing it, reading that stuff, but I'm saying I can't.
The second Great Coats book was like that, where it just like kept coming back to that. And I was just kind of like, I was so close to the end of the book that I continued on with it. But like I haven't really been super motivated to get into book 3 because of all of that stuff happening right at the end of book 2. And it's all like flashbacks too, like, which you don't like. I feel like the flashbacks and like that's one of those things like you don't even really need to do that. Like just let it alone, because I don't want to read that stuff.
Have you you had said that the Spiffbo stuff you had read the Great Bastards. Have you read anything else of those 10 books?
Let's see what else is in there.
I've read one of the other
ones.
Go what?
I've read one of the other ones that was like one of the first. It might have been the first winner. It's called like The Thief that pulled on Trouble's braids or something like that. Mm-hmm. I read that one a few years ago, like before I really even knew anything about like the self-published world, or even knew what the competition was, but I just like found it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Okay.
I didn't absolutely love it, but I thought it was fine. Just kind of meh. Like, so but I've read Orconomics, which was fun. I've read Reign and Ruin, which if you ever read any kind of like romantic fantasy, like it is fantastic. Like really, 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 really good book. And so like I listened to that audiobook and it was great. I've got The Lost War, and I need to read that. I haven't read Sword of Kaigan. I know
I've read it. It's awesome. It's the weirdest structured book I've ever read though. Like it's just so crazy. Like I'm not gonna give anything away. Everybody's heard this, but your basic final battle is in the middle of the book. There's this giant battle that happens, and then you're like, okay, I'm halfway through, like, oh, there's so much more stuff that's going to go down. There's not. It's just all what happens with the aftermath of this war and what goes on with that family, which the whole book's about. And it is so good, and I still don't know how it's a standalone. Like, this book does not end like a standalone book. But it's so great.
And I know that a lot of people have said it's a very depressing book.
Oh, it definitely could be.
That's one of those things. For me, I sometimes tend to like put those off, or like that one I've heard great things that I'm sure it's good, but I don't know if I want to read it.
If you have like kids too, like that's a big part of it as well. But yeah, it's so good. I've heard what is it, By Blood, By Salt, that just won this past year. I've heard it is amazing.
Yeah, she's from Oklahoma, like me.
Okay.
But yeah, she's awesome. JL Odom. She's also she doesn't live in Oklahoma anymore, I don't believe, but she's from Oklahoma. We've talked about that before.
That's cool. I've got, what was it, the Kickstarter for, which it's not in yet. They're still waiting on it, but the one where you could get Sword of Kaigan and the Rob J. Hayes book. Loyalties Lie, or Let Loyalties
Lie, I think.
Yeah. So I'm waiting on them to come in whenever. I've not read any Rob J. Hayes neither. I don't know if you have. I've got his
I have some of his books, but I haven't read anything.
Yeah. Same way. I've got, like I said, the God Eater, I guess trilogy is what it is.
I have the Never Die.
Okay, I've heard it's really good. So
I think I have the Titan Hoppers book as well.
Okay. That's his like sci-fi one, ain't it?
I'm gonna go quickly let the dog out because she's telling me that she wants to come out.
All right. But yes, it looks like it's gonna be good. Um, so, but yeah, I think it's supposed to be supposedly like Tottenhoppers is like his like sci-fi version or something. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the puppy.
Nice.
But excuse me. So, are you? I know Envoys has got an audiobook, right?
It does, yes.
Yeah. Are you going to put one out for Pawns?
Yep, it's going to be start recording, I think, in July.
Okay.
So out maybe sometime this fall. It'll be a much shorter audiobook because, it's a little bit over a fourth the length.
Yeah.
But yep, that's the plan. I've started writing book 2 and also working on a secret project as well that might be a little bit more sci-fi-ish.
That'd be cool.
So, I mean, I grew up reading a lot of sci-fi, but I haven't written any sci-fi really since I was in high school.
What would you say is your favorite sci-fi book that you've read?
So I grew up reading Timothy Zahn.
Okay.
Who, like, he wrote the
Star Wars
ones,
yeah.
But he wrote a bunch of other ones too that are also really good. And he has a book called The Icarus Hunt.
Okay.
It's from like 1999. And I absolutely loved that book. I love some of his other sci-fi. Like, he, for me, was like someone that I read like every one of his books that he published when I was growing up. And I really, really liked his stuff. And then, I mean, I read some other sci-fi, read some of the classics and some of the other ones, but I'll go with the one that like was my favorite growing up, which was The Icarus Hunt.
Yeah. Have you read Hyperion?
I have not.
Okay.
So the thing is, I love the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah. I've not read it.
Because like,
but I
read like the entire Canterbury Tales at one point growing up because I read all the classics growing up. And it's a fantastic book. And it's really cool with the stories. I don't know how it would work in the sci-fi world. And like, also I've like that one, I've heard it's really good and like the writing's great, but it's not one that's at the top of my list to get to.
It's weird. I'll say that. It's really, really weird. So I was expecting way more than what I got. I guess just dealing with like the Shrek and thinking like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And it's just really weird. Let's say that.
Makes sense.
So, oh, me. Well, let's see. We're almost at an hour and a half. So we'll do a couple more questions here.
All right.
So, what are you reading right now? Because you read, before you answer this, I see your Goodreads stuff. Like it pops up on my emails. Like you are constantly finishing books and putting stuff on your to be read.
They're mostly like audio. Like I listen to a lot of audio, but I've been really slow at getting through non-audio recently. But I'm almost done listening to The Devils. And then I'm going to be listening to the Anji Kills a King.
Okay.
By Evan Lycom. I got the publisher sent me a copy of that book. So I haven't had a chance to actually read the paperback, but I have the audio. And I'm reading Garancia's Fury by L.M. Douglas. I'd read Garancia's Guardian already. And then also reading The Glorious and Epic Tale of Lady Isovar by Dave Dobson, which is one that he sent me a copy a while back. And I'd been meaning to get to it, and now's the time for that. It's like a humorous
that'd be cool.
fantasy with like powerful woman, not powerful man. So it kind of fits in with my vibe,
Yeah. I am just got done with, where did I put it?
Zelda.
It's all over there. Bloodbound. Just finished it. G.J. Terrell. And then I'm about to start Stephen King's. Oh, geez. What is it called? Oh, Billy Summers. Going to start Billy Summers soon, and I'm halfway done with Howling Dark. So, that's the Christopher Rocchio stuff. So
Right. I've not read any of those.
I wasn't a big fan of book one. It's a lot of like build up with no payoff, I guess you'd say, and like a bunch of different parts. But other than that, it's okay. Book two's way better. Like it seems way more focused, especially on the main character. Like it's not a lot of like flashback stuff, which is so much better. So I think I already know this answer that I'm going to ask, but what is your favorite book?
So the answer I answered last time was Count of Monte Cristo, which is one of my favorites. I'm also going to throw a shout out to Scaramouche by Raphael Sabatini, which is a historical novel from like the 20s. And it's about the French Revolution, and it is just has everything. It has all of the things I love in a fantasy novel, but it's a historical novel. It's got the play troupe, swords, political scheming, all the things. Like the main character is a guy who is basically whatever he puts his mind to, he learns. It's like with this sort of like. He hones in like, I will learn this thing. And so he is able to do a lot of different things, not because he's super talented at all of them immediately, but because he tries and he works until he learns them.
Okay. I can't remember what I said whenever we had talked last time, what my favorite book was. But
obviously, we're in the Pawns of Havoc.
Yeah, absolutely. As of now, though, mine has changed to probably Golden Sun, just book 2 in the Red Rising.
Book 2 of the Red Rising. I think I tried to read part of book 1 of that, and I was just like, I don't like this. And
it's super fast paced, and that's what I like about it. And I like a lot of like the Roman stuff. I understand how a lot of people talk about it's like Hunger Games.
Yeah.
But man, book 2 is its own thing, and book 3 is too. Like I've read Morning Star and Golden Sun, and they're both so good. So, but all right, last question before we do that. Let me grab something real quick.
Yeah, let's get your toy.
All right. So I'm going to ask, last question, what would you recommend me to read? Now, on the caveat, you told me last time that I should read The Count of Monte Cristo. So I got The Count of Monte Cristo.
It's long.
It is really long. Like 1,000 pages. Or no, well, almost 900, almost 800 something. So, but it's really small writing, so you could basically say it's 1,000. So, other than that, what would you recommend?
Let's see. I would say that I'm going to go a little bit. I think I also recommended Spricket the Bard. I'm going to recommend. This dog she's trying to chew up the towel over here. It's not fun. We're going to say that I think you should read. I'm going to say The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French. See what you think.
I've already wrote it down because it sounds good.
Yeah. I said, lots of profanity and stuff like that, but I think it makes sense for the world.
Yeah, that'll work. It does. It sounds really good, and I would like to read the 10 books on the Spiffbo stuff just to see what else so good about like the indie writing scene and all that.
Rain and Ruin was a really good, like, I know probably romantasy is not really your thing, but like it was more than just a romance. Like it had a very good world and world building and everything as well.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Excuse me. I guess that's really all I've got.
All right. Well,
So,
this puppy is definitely ready to go on a walk.
there you go. Well, all right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone that joined today. Other than that, that's all I got. You got anything you want to plug or anything?
So yeah, 2 books. They're both out. You can get them on my website. You can get them on Amazon. There's an audiobook for Envoys. And if you do want a hardcover of Envoys, those are on sale right now because I have a bunch of them that I like just at my house. And so I'm selling them for like, I think $20 or something like that. $21 instead of like what they were before. So like if and I'm going to try to figure out sprayed edges here in the next
There you go. Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, all right. Well, thanks for being on the channel. And other than that, y'all have a great rest of the weekend and have fun on Monday morning tomorrow.
All right. Thanks so much, Rowdy.
See y'all